Hi, it's Duncan Brody here from Goals and Achievements, and welcome to another of my expert interviews. As a result of COVID, many people, including accountants and professionals, have found themselves out of work and been made redundant. So today, I'm delighted to be joined by Sarah Steele of Better With Money, who's going to share her insights into navigating your way through redundancy. Welcome, Sarah.
Hi Duncan, it's lovely to be here.
Okay, so Sarah, just to give people a bit of background, could you tell us a bit about your background and your business, please?
Yeah, of course. I fell out of university over 20 years ago now, Duncan, and just fell into financial services, actually helping people around their pension schemes. And spent sort of the last 20 odd years helping both individuals and companies with all of their employee benefits. But then I was lucky enough about a year ago to be approached to take on a lovely company called Better With Money, which somebody had set up back in 2016, really because she saw a niche in the market for independent financial education to help people to understand their finances and to inspire action and reduce money stress. And really, when I looked at the business, I thought it brings together everything I love, which is that educational piece and working with people and really helping out. So yeah, for the last year, I've been the owner of Better With Money. So we go into workplaces and do all sorts of courses, from talking about debt management through to how to improve credit scores. But of course, most recently, really helping people with the financial situation around COVID-19, particularly where people have been furloughed or seeing their roles facing redundancy.
Yeah, so pretty rewarding and pretty important work right now, Sarah.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if you can help somebody just with a very small tip that's going to make a difference to their life day to day, then it's absolutely worth doing.
Okay, so first question really is, if people find themselves redundant or been told, getting that bad news that redundancy is coming, what's the first thing they should do?
Yeah, and well, there's lots of things. I mean, I think the first thing is just to remember that it is your role being made redundant, not you personally. And I think just wording it that way can actually help you keep a bit of confidence, because it's just a sad fact that 1 in 4 companies at the moment are having to make roles redundant because of the financial impact. But in terms of, if you're in that situation, then understandably, probably the first thing is the worries about money. Am I going to be able to pay the bills over the next few months until I get a new role or work out what I'm doing? So I think really it is to plan financially. That's the first step, so that you can feel in control and know, how you're going to pay for those bills and living costs until you get some further income. Now, to do this, it's really about budgeting. So working out the money that you've got coming in, the bills that you really have to pay, and it may well be actually that if you've worked for your employer for more than 2 years, you might be entitled to redundancy pay to compensate you for that loss of income, which obviously you can then add to that money coming in. Now, there are loads of free tools available. You've only got to Google budget planners, things like that, and you can choose which one works for you. But we do have on the Better With Money website either a budget planner that you can print off and fill out. If you're like me, I prefer writing things out and sticking them on the notice board, or we've got an interactive one online. But I think, whatever budget planner you use, it's really best to think about your money in 3 main chunks. That first chunk is about your essential spending. What is it? Is it the rent, the mortgage, the bills, the food shopping, things that you absolutely have to pay for to live day to day? Then the second chunk is looking at your debt. Do you have any loan repayments? Do you have car finance, phone finance, things like that you must pay every month to make sure that you don't get into spiraling debt? And then the third one, which is obviously the best one, is the fun stuff, thinking about what we spend each month on takeaways or going out with friends when we can, and clothes and those sorts of things. So once you've filled out a budget planner, and I think the key here is really being honest with yourself, not forgetting that takeaway every week that you have, and then you'll have a much clearer idea of the money that you're going to need, to see whether you've either got a shortfall or whether you've got enough to see you over the next few months, to sort of financially plan to get you through.
Okay, so I'm guessing the big learning point there is it's about getting awareness straight away in terms of not just well what's coming in, but also your spending habits too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, one of the best things you can do for that is, and to be honest, is to go through your bank statement. Because even when you write out all the things that you think you spend, I mean, I've only got to look at mine to work out that I probably spend too much on online shopping, particularly coming up to this time of year, whether that's Amazon, eBay, or local shops, whatever it might be. So make sure you do that so that you really get a clear idea. Otherwise, you get to the end of the month and you think, where did that money go? So it's about starting to feel in control. Even if the picture that you get isn't maybe the picture you want, it's that start of being in control and being able to sort out what to do.
Okay, brilliant. That's excellent. So obviously I work a lot, Sarah, with accountants and professional people. Obviously people who when they're in work, often quite well paid. What would you suggest if people find themselves in that situation whereby they've had a dramatic drop in their income, or there's been a dramatic drop in the household income, and they're really struggling to make ends meet?
Yeah, well, I think absolutely the first thing to do is to look at whether there are any state benefits that you might be entitled to. You've worked for many years, you've paid your national insurance, and ultimately that's what it's there to do. The state benefits are there to help you in your time of need. Now, the main benefit if you're not working and if you are looking for another job is the New Style Job Seekers Allowance. To qualify for that, you must be under state pension age and actively seeking work. And you can normally claim this as long as you've paid national insurance contributions for the last 2 years. And the good thing about this particular state benefit is that it's not affected by household savings. So if your partner's got some savings or you've got some savings, the reason it might be reduced is if you've actually got some other earnings coming in yourself. And for this tax year, that's around just under £75 a week if you're eligible for that. The other benefit you might be entitled to is universal credit. And this is for people who've either been employed or self-employed and are out of work or on a low income, and again, under state pension age. Now, the standard allowance for that is just over £400 a month, so it can make a real difference. But you could even get more if you're still caring for children or you live with a disabled person. And you can also get housing allowance on top. So if you think because of a dropping in family income, you might be eligible for these benefits, I would strongly suggest that the first thing to do is look at an eligibility calculator. And again, there's quite a few of them if you Google them online, which help you to see if there's going to be state benefits you can claim for. Now, the ones that I use regularly and I often recommend to people, there's 2 websites. There's the Entitled To website and the Turn to Us website. If you go on there, I did it the other day. I went in and put in my details. It took about 10 minutes, and then it came out at the end which state benefits I'd be eligible for or not. If it comes out that you are, it's at that point that you can then go onto the gov.uk website, which is the government website, to apply. That's probably the first thing to do. If you do find that you're eligible for state benefits, it's also worth contacting your council as well, because they might agree to reduce your council tax bill, particularly if you're eligible for universal credit. And again, you'll find details of that on the gov.uk website.
Okay, so obviously that's tackling the income shortfall. Anything in terms of actually, making ends meet, is there anything that people can actually do to help with the make ends meet side of things? So actually covering the spend. You've obviously mentioned about looking at your expenditure. Anything else you would suggest in terms of looking at their expenditure that they could perhaps
Yeah, kind of money saving tips, I guess. I mean, I think there's lots of things that we can do. I mean, the first thing at the moment, up until the end of January 2021, is that you do have the ability to take a mortgage payment holiday. And falls under the support that's been put in place because of coronavirus. You can just go on to your mortgage provider's websites. Most of them have got an application form that's very clear. If you apply online, it means that you can have up to 3 months of a mortgage payment holiday where you don't need to pay anything. The only thing to be aware of, though, is that the interest is still going to rack up over those 3 months. So when you get back to paying it, the cost might be slightly higher to cover the missing payments when you start. But if you get to the end of that 3 months and you're still struggling financially, you do have the ability to ask for that mortgage payment holiday to be extended for a further 3 months just to help you through. So that's definitely something to look at. If you feel like you can afford to continue to pay the mortgage, but you're out of a fixed rate, it's well worth shopping around at the moment, Duncan. You know, you'll be all too aware that the interest base rate fell earlier this year down to the lowest it's ever been, 0.1%. And the upside of that for mortgage holders is that mortgage borrowing and loan borrowing has become cheaper. So it might well be just by shopping around or even asking your existing mortgage provider for some new rates, you might be paying less back on a monthly basis. So the first thing is look at what you can do around your mortgage. Other thing is to look at your fixed costs, things like your utility bills. Most people can actually save up to about £200 a year just by shopping around. And if you're one of these people that thinks, oh, I just don't know where to start when I'm reviewing my utility bills, or, you know, I don't have the energy or the time to do it, there are some great companies out there that will do it for you now. There's one, it's called Look After My Bills. These guys were on Dragon's Den and they were successful in getting the Dragon's Den funding. They provide a free service. So you give them your details, they do all the shopping around for you, they switch it online for you, and it costs you nothing. So there's probably no excuse actually for us not to do it anymore. And the other thing, which I think, you know, a lot of our big spending every month is on food. Actually, I mean, it has been in our household, particularly during the pandemic, as you know, people are sort of stress eating and boredom eating at home. So it's really thinking about, can I make the most of food vouchers out there? I mean, you know, not only do a lot of the stores have sort of their loyalty vouchers, but you can go onto sites like My Voucher Codes that have all the vouchers for all the supermarkets that are valid at that time. So definitely make the most of those. And there's also a couple of apps out there for food. You've got the Too Good To Go app and the Olio app. And this is where people share food that might otherwise be thrown away or are coming up sell-by dates. And that's individuals and supermarkets use these apps. So it's well worth going on to see whether you can get reduced food or free food in your area as well. So I think there's, you know, lots of things we can start off with just to see whether we can get those monthly essential spending bills down to help us out.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And I guess on the food bill, obviously, which is a big thing for everyone, perhaps just looking at how much you're buying, because I certainly know that kind of over the years I've become much more conscious about how much you're buying, and you've often got more sitting in the cupboard than you actually really need.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah, I guess it is using up, you know, your store cupboard. Also looking at whether you can buy things actually in the last 2 hours in the supermarket, things get reduced. Mm-hmm. You know, whether you can buy stuff and freeze it. That's a very good trick. But for me, Duncan, what I found is actually online shopping really works for me, because what I tend to do is I write my food list out for the week. That's another thing, you know, food planning. And again, we've got a food planner on the Better With Money website. You can print that off, think, right, we're going to eat this week. And then when you do your online shop, just buy the stuff that you need to provide those meals. I reckon I took a good third off my food shop by doing that, because when I go into the supermarket, I'm like, oh, that looks good, or I might just have that. But saying that, you know, online shopping or click or collect, something like that works for me. But I do know friends who say, oh, every time I go online, I then look at all the the 50% off, and they end up spending more than they would have done had they gone in the shop. So it's just about finding out what works for you, really.
Yeah, but I think it's a really important point there, isn't it, about the list? Because I've heard others say that if you actually go to the supermarket with a list, then you stick to it, then you don't get tempted by those shiny objects and as you wander around. And I guess it's the same discipline online too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about not being tempted by all the different offers that they put right on the front page. You know, when you walk around a store, they put all the profitable things at eye level for you. Mm-hmm. And when you're online, all the profitable things for them are probably on the front page, and they know that we're going to be sucked in by special offer deals on things that we don't even want. So yeah, mm-hmm. Absolutely. Sticking to the list is the way forward.
Yeah. And what about things like, I mean, obviously most people these days have a mobile phone. Most people have internet and all that kind of stuff. Is it worthwhile, in your experience, just calling up your providers and saying, look, you know, is there something you can do that could help out here?
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more on that. I mean, one example that I always bring up, Duncan, is Sky. Because, you know, and they've got the TV and the broadband and mobile phone and all the rest of it. Because I remember over lockdown thinking, I'm just spending too much on them. Every year I seem to do this, and then the bill creeps up again. And I phoned them with the idea of stopping Sky Sports, actually, and trying to get the bill down. And I ended up, at the end of the call, I kept Sky Sports. I actually added their broadband. I switched from another provider because we were getting a poor service. And my bill ended up still being £20 cheaper, even though I'd added services. So there is definitely something to say, you know, whatever bill it is, phone up your provider first and foremost to say, right, I can't afford this anymore. What can you do? Because you'll find unless you phone them, that bill will start going up. When you phone them and tell them that you might have to leave because you can't afford it, they will find ways to reduce that. You know, and if they don't, then you've got the option of switching providers. So yeah, definitely worth doing if you can.
Yeah, well, I know several times what I've done is I've got my broadband with Virgin Media, and I know that on several occasions I've called them up and said, I see you're doing some great offers for new customers. I'm wondering about loyalty bonuses. Yeah. And each time you inevitably you're spending £10 less each month. And it all kind of adds up. And another one I certainly noticed, and I guess it's probably one you would recommend too, Sarah, is that if you have got your insurance as part of your mortgage, you're probably your buildings and contents insurance as part of your mortgage, you're probably paying more than you should need to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sometimes even though you think it's good to put everything with the same provider, it's not always the best. It's just a way of them making money. There's actually one of the services that I've started using, which I find good, is Utility Warehouse. They do the gas and electricity and mobile and broadband, but they also do home insurance. And what they do is they bundle everything together. And I have found, looking at all the individual costs, they're very reasonable. And I think this year they won Which Utility Provider of the Year. Mm-hmm. But the other thing they do is they provide you with a cashback card. So if you use that card for your weekly shop, the cashback that you earn then gets taken straight off of your utility bills. So, you know, coming up to Christmas, when you're spending lots in the shop, you can get lots of cashback. You could actually end up with a utility bill in December that's virtually nothing because they get offset. So it's just another provider that's worth looking at. You know, and I should say here that Better With Money is totally independent. We don't get commission. We're not tied to any companies here. You know, the things that I mentioned are because I genuinely believe could offer good value for money for people and just worth looking at.
Okay. So if people are fortunate enough to get some sort of payoff lump sum when they've been made redundant, how would you suggest they best use that?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, first of all, work out whether you need any of that to tide you over for the next few months, and you should be able to do that by working out your budget. If you feel actually I don't need it, or you're fortunate enough that you're going straight into another role, then there's a few things you could do with that lump sum. I mean, first of all, you could definitely use it to clear any debts that you might have, and again, that brings your monthly spending down. And I say that particularly now because the savings interest rates are so low. I mean, best case scenario, if you've got money in a savings account, an easy access account, you're only going to be getting a maximum of 1% return on that money. So actually clearing off debts that are likely to have higher interest rates is going to save you overall and bring that monthly spending down. So that's the first thing to look at. If you haven't got debts to clear and maybe you want to save the money for the short to medium term, if you think you're going to need it in the next year or so, then look at the sort of fixed rate savings where you can get slightly higher interest rates if you keep that money invested for 1 year, 2 year, 3 years. If you think that actually you can keep that money saved for sort of 3 to 5 years, then ISAs are worth looking at. ISAs allow you to save up to £20,000 a year. You can either put that money into cash or invest in stocks and shares. And the advantage of ISAs over just putting in the money in a bank account is that you pay no tax at all on the interest or growth. And then you can withdraw all the money when you need it, tax-free as well. And on that same note, I really wanted to mention the lifetime ISA as well, because if you're aged between 18 and 39 and you're saving for your first home, then the lifetime ISA works just like a normal ISA, but the added advantage is you get a 25% government boost on any savings up to £4,000 a year. And that is designed to help you get on that housing ladder quicker. So definitely worth looking at if you're in that age band, 18 to 39, and saving for your first home. And of course, if you've got money that you can afford to save for the longer term, it's still the most tax efficient way of saving is still to put your money into pensions to boost your retirement income. You can't access the savings in pensions until you're at least age 55, and that age is going to be going up to 57 in 2028. But if you can afford to invest it for the long term, you don't pay any tax at all on the money you put in. It grows in a tax-free environment. And then when you come to taking the money out, you can have up to 25% of the pot that you've saved tax-free as well. So it is still the most tax efficient way of saving if you can. And lastly, if I've got time, Duncan, there's just one other thing I wanted to mention about what you could do with that lump sum. And that is to actually use it to either retrain or start your own business. When I was doing some research, about 1 in 6 people earn their living as self-employed in the UK. And when surveyed, I think about 2/3 of people said that at some point in their life, they had an aspiration to have their own business. And having made that leap myself, sort of earlier this year, there are lots of pros. I mean, you find you're doing something that you enjoy, you're working the hours that suit you and fit around your family. But there are downsides as well, things like not having that guaranteed paycheck at the end of the month and not getting the benefits that maybe you got when you were an employee. Which is probably a good point, actually, because when you do leave a company, whether it's through redundancy or because you choose to, it is worth looking at what benefits were I covered for. Often you get life assurance through a company, you get healthcare schemes. Is that now something that you need to factor into your budget and provide for yourself if you're no longer going to be employed? But yeah, I just wanted to mention that retraining, using that lump sum to retrain, because I think there's a lot of people, particularly this year, that will be looking to do that.
Okay, so Sarah, you've shared a huge amount of tips and ideas there. If people want to connect with you, what's the best ways for doing that?
Yeah, the easiest way is just to go onto our website. That's betterwithmoney.com. We've got lots of resources on there, from the budget planners and the food planners. We've also got some blogs on redundancy and things like that. But it will have our contact details on there. You can just email me at sarah.steele@betterwithmoney.com and be very happy to come back to you.
Brilliant. And I think you're also on LinkedIn as well, aren't you, Sarah?
I am. We're on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. So wherever you look, if you search Better with Money, you should be able to find us.
Well, Sarah, it's been a real pleasure talking to you today. You've shared so much in the time we've been speaking. Thanks very much for your insights, ideas. I'm sure anyone who's watching this will get a ton of value, and thanks again.
Thank you for inviting me, Duncan. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.